All right. Welcome to your 5 quick tips for stress-free meal planning for every individual or mom who has ever felt overwhelmed or wanted to pull their hair out by the thought of creating family meals for the next 20 years. So I'm so excited that you decided to join me today. I wanted to dive right in to these 5 stress-free meal planning tips. And I believe strongly that each tip needs to start with the word permission. So let's cover these 5 tips, shall we? All right, tip number 1, permission to use the same recipe or meals multiple times in the same week. This will help with the stress-free part of this. We have got to get used to the idea that it's okay if 2 to 3 to even 4 of your breakfasts look the same. Same thing with snacks or lunch. If that's part of your nutrition personality, if you don't mind that things look similar, then go for it. I'm giving you permission. No worries. Tip number 2, permission to not be perfect in our meal planning. Not every dish needs to look Pinterest worthy. I do feel like sometimes that thought of our dish not being perfect is enough to stop us from ever starting in the first place. So we've got to get a good enough mentality going in the kitchen until we can keep practicing and our food, our choices starts to look exactly how you hoped it would. All right, tip number 3, permission to bulk or batch cook and freeze for another time. Okay, to repurpose your time and efforts in the kitchen. This is a big deal. I want to make sure that anytime that you get pots and pans out or you're about to wash dishes, that all of that time and effort, you get multiple meals and snacks off of that. And then even possibly items and choices for a later time if you're willing to refrigerate and freeze. All right, tip number 4, permission to not always worry about hitting calorie levels. Sometimes we just need to create our dish. We just need to enjoy it. We just need to love our end product. Have you ever noticed if you worry too much about calories that you're making that perfectly healthy dish and all of a sudden you're like, I don't even like it. So why would you go back and make it again? I care more about you loving your end product so that you're excited to keep coming back to this habit, to keep creating in the kitchen. So don't worry about the calories yet, the power of yet. All right, tip number 5, permission to be a rock star one week and a slacker the next. When we have a little bit of time and energy that opens up, it feels a lot easier to put that time into the grocery store, into the kitchen. And those are the weeks that we need to take advantage. But then don't have that expectation week after week, month after month. We're going to have the crazy weeks at work. We're going to have the crazy kid schedule or somebody getting sick in the family where all of a sudden all of our amazing planning and efforts just fall away. And the important part is this word that I'll continue to give you is resilience, is that we have that crazy week and maybe nothing looked right or nothing fell how it was supposed to be within our perfect little plan, but then we know exactly how to jump back on track. Okay, so we've got to get good at that, like ebb and flow, rock star, slacker type mentality. I wanted to give you a quick preview of 2 worksheets that were downloadable for you. And everybody enjoys meal planning in a different way. Some people are on apps, some people like given worksheets, and others just want a blank piece of paper in front of you. And there's this word permission again. Do it your way. There's not a wrong or a right way. I'm just giving you options within our time together today. Okay, so now we're going to do something fun together. We are going to write down what you're currently doing. If you're doing this exercise side by side with me, you can even take a minute and pause this video as we go. I'm going to go through it at a pretty fast clip as to not bore anybody who's just watching this all the way through. But again, if you're going to fill out your own current meal snack schedule, feel free to pause me and get going on it. So I wanted to give you examples. Let's pretend like you do peanut butter toast and you know what? You're kind of a creature of habit. And so you do it multiple days in a row, if I can ever get this Copy and pasted. Okay, we're gonna do it. You kind of do it during all the work days, right? It's just easy. You like it with your cup of coffee. Maybe on a Friday, you get all crazy and do cereal. And then on a Saturday, maybe you're like an egg sandwich person, whether that's because you're making it at your house or you're running out to fast food. Okay, maybe you barely do breakfast and the thought of doing a mid-morning snack isn't even on your radar. And so these would all be skips. And then we're moving on to lunch. Okay, maybe you're not in the best habits at the moment. It's okay. Right now is not about what we want to be doing. Right now is about what are we currently doing? So maybe lunch at the moment is some fast foods. And then we're going to do a sandwich. Maybe we got excited and packed. Sandwich and chips even. And then salad bar. Maybe you have a grocery store next to you that has a beautiful salad bar and you do that every once in a while. And then on the weekends, maybe you even skip lunch. I know a lot of people do that. Okay, thinking through some mid-afternoon snacks. Sometimes this is purposeful. Sometimes this is whatever is laying around the office or around the house. So I wanted to give you some ideas with this. It could look like maybe you bring some protein bars to work, or we'll do this a couple days in a row. And then what if you have that office worker who has the candy laying out and you just kind of graze on candy in the afternoon? This could also look like a coffee time for you or hot chocolate or you name it. And again, maybe over the weekend, this is more like grazing on chips or other snacky type food. Same thing, chips. Okay, dinners. Not sure what your family dynamics, or maybe you live alone. Doesn't matter. This is going to be, we all have barriers around our dinner time. That could look like sports. It could look like rushing home from work. It could look like business events after work. So again, just what you're currently doing. Maybe you do a breakfast for dinner on Mondays because it's just easy and the kids love it. Maybe you do something like a taco bar or a potato bar one night. By Wednesday, you're already extending or past your bandwidth of thinking, and we're going to go ahead and just pizza night. And then you go out to eat a couple other nights and maybe a crock pot meal. And then I'm going to put out at restaurants on Saturday and Sunday. All right. And then last, some people are done after dinner depending on how late you eat. And other individuals, this is a very like grazy, nibbly time for you. So I really want to hone in on what might be happening during this time. Maybe for some, you're bringing popcorn to the couch to watch your show. Maybe it's an ice cream. You like sweet treats in the evening. Maybe you don't do anything. Ice cream, chips, soda, chips. Okay, so now the next element of this, once you have your current food regimen filled out, it might be helpful to even give yourself times, like a breakfast time might look like 8, or you might be skipping. A lunchtime might look like noon. A mid-afternoon snack could look like 3. Dinner could look like 7. And a late snack could look like 9. And the reason why I'm telling you about snacks and meals like this or looking at timing is because if you find that you're going into any one particular meal starving for dinner, starving or lunch, and it's really hard to stop, it's probably because we missed an opportunity to fit in that healthy snack so that we're not going into that next meal starving. Or I would love for you to be able to see, wow, I'm really a meal and a snack skipper. Or it just gives you a really good visual of what your day can look like. And then the last task before we move on here is I want you to highlight, and this can be however you want to do it. If you're doing it on computer, you can do it how I'm doing it, or you can break out your highlighters or your pens. Anything that you don't mind or you think might even be healthy, highlight in yellow. Anything that you're not proud of, you can go ahead and highlight in red. And that's just going to be helpful for us as we move on to the next section. Okay, because anything that's in red would be items that maybe we should be working on changing out first. And anything in yellow, maybe we just leave that alone for a while. Let's not nitpick everything. Let's just dig at those areas that we really need to change first. And then I thought it would be good to go ahead and give you a visual of a filled out meal plan. I call it kind of like a wishful meal plan, or if I was to have a week that I'm looking back going, I nailed it, that it could look something like this. And I'm going to walk you through our 5 tips and how they relate to this specific meal plan. So I first wanted to give you tip number 1 was permission to use the same meal or recipe. And as you look through, like there's multiple avocado toast for breakfast, steel cut oats. You can use the same thing over and over. It frees up brain space. It's amazing. You already know you like it. It's areas that go ahead and hit that repeat button, okay? And you can see it throughout the whole meal plan. Tip number 2, permission to not be perfect. We're going to have stuff on there like a BLT might not feel perfect to somebody, or it might not look how you thought you wanted it to look, or that avocado toast, maybe it doesn't look like what you got at the restaurant, but you still like it. It's still enjoyable for you. Permission to not be perfect. Tip number 3, permission to bulk or batch cook. And you can see that we're starting to do this like with the homemade chicken salad. We made enough that we can eat off of it multiple times in the week. Or the soups are wonderful for this. You eat off of it multiple times in the week, and then you still have an opportunity to freeze it, so that when you come home from a trip or a vacation or whatever, then all you do is take that soup out of the freezer and you already have dinner number 1 for that week. And that's amazing. Tip number 4, to not worry about calories. And this is where I really want you to go, it's okay if I don't know the exact calorie count. Let's say you found a recipe for this sweet and sour shrimp and you really like it, but you're like, I don't really know how much that's adding up to in calories. I don't want it to defeat your idea of ever making it in the first place. Okay. The point is to get this flow going, to get this like the habit, the practice of being in the kitchen and creating and prepping and planning and keeping it fun, keeping it enjoyable, keeping it tasteful. So I'm less worried about specific calories at the moment. And then you're also going to have items that easily you can find the calories. Hummus, you have a container sitting in front of you. Steel cut oats, same thing. Like there's easy ways to calculate calories, but then when there's not, don't let that be a barrier for you to create that dish. All right, tip number 5, we're back to the be a rock star 1 week and a slacker the next. And so this is where I really want you to know that, again, when you have time and energy, this meal plan might be absolutely something that you're able to do. And then the kid gets sick or work gets crazy and we're back to this again, because this is what we know. This is what's easy to fall back into. And then we get some extra rest over the weekend. We feel back on top of it and we're back to the rock star week. So just again, get used to that ebb and flow, and then it doesn't all have to be perfect, right? Okay. And just to summarize and leave you on these 5 quick tips for stress-free meal planning. I know we've been talking about it the whole time, but I'm going to leave you with tip number 1, permission to use the same recipe or meals multiple times in the same week. Tip number 2, permission to not be perfect. Tip number 3, permission to bulk or batch cook so that you can freeze or eat off of it multiple times. Tip number 4, permission to not always worry about hitting calorie levels. And tip number 5, permission to be a rock star 1 week and a slacker the next. I hope that you enjoyed our time together. And now I'm excited for you to jump off and go start your meal planning. All right. Thank you for joining me today.